Hey guys, Paeter Fransen here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here to give you my thoughts on Habroxia 2. First, I want to thank Lilymo Games for providing me with a copy for the PlayStation 4 to review. I played the original Habroxia mostly on Vita, and I haven't finished it. I'm probably about halfway through it and have been enjoying my time with it. This is a side-scrolling or top-down, depending on the level that and what your ship is doing, shoot 'em up. A little spaceship, you're controlling a little spaceship. You've seen classic games like Nemesis and Life Force, and it's basically that kind of game. It has like a 8-bit to 16-bit type of art style, and the sound effects and the sound effects and music are in that vein as well. I should say at the front that one of the developers of this game, COLIN Moriarty, is someone in games media that I have really enjoyed listening to for many years and have really actually developed personal affection for. I was blessed to have the opportunity to be on his Fireside Chats podcast and met him in person to do that. And he's remotely been on my podcast and YouTube channel as well, chatted about the idea of Christians being in the video games industry. I would not by any means, call us friends or anything like that, but as a listener of his for many years, I've developed a real affection for him, and even more so having had the opportunity to chat with him a few times. So you can keep that in mind and factor that in as much as you want, but I do think that I'm able to be objective in saying what I do or don't like about this game. I really like the space shooter genre, the old school classic kind of retro shooter genre, but I suck at video games. I suck at anything that requires good hand-eye coordination. And so when a game like this is being made that's conjuring up these old arcadey type elements of gameplay, I always look for things that are going to modernize it in a way that will make it more accessible and enjoyable to me. And I'm happy to say that in both Habroxia 1 and even more so in Habroxia 2, we have those kinds of things present in the upgrade system. So what you have is a twin stick shooter, so you're controlling the direction of your ship with your left stick, you're controlling the shooting with the right stick. You just point the right stick and immediately you start auto-firing in the direction that you're pointing the right stick in. And you are getting pickups like you would in a game like Life Force or Nemesis that temporarily give your ship special abilities. But you are also getting permanent upgrades as well. You're picking up credits, space credits or whatever they are, that in between levels will allow you to make permanent upgrades to your ship's health, your ability to take damage before you die, the power level of your weapons. You have a special weapon that kind of is on a cooldown timer that you can increase the power of that. So there's a number of things, another number of upgrade options that can make the game easier for you if you're willing to grind. And you can grind levels. You can play levels multiple times, and there's even some incentive for replaying them because of collectibles that you can find along the way, little astronauts that you can rescue. There are forked paths, and so one level, depending on a turn that you make at a pivotal moment, will take you down one road to fight one boss, or another road to fight a different boss at the end of that same level. So there's definitely some nice replay value thrown in. But I think even apart from that, I think I would enjoy some degree of playing these levels again and again to grind. Just the satisfaction for me of grinding and seeing my character, or in this case my ship, become stronger in between runs is really satisfying to me. Maybe not as satisfying to overcome the fact that, okay, yes, once I've played through a level the 4th time or the 5th time, it's maybe not as exciting. And so this is a game that so far I've only really enjoyed playing in short bursts. It's not one that I sit down and say, I'm going to give my night of gaming, 2 hours of playing Habroxia 2. No, these games I end up playing maybe for stretches of 10 minutes at a time, and then I put them down. And so that is about the value that it has for me in terms of how much it can really hook me. I will say that compared to Habroxia 1, this one has a really steep curve at the very beginning. There's a nice tutorial that introduces you to the various mechanics of the game, but after that, they throw a lot of stuff at you in the first level that I was frankly surprised about. For example, like bullets from enemies that will follow you around, and you have to they're heat-seeking, you have to kind of dodge them. I wasn't running into those until, I want to say maybe the 3rd or 4th stage in the original Habroxia, and so it seems like right off the bat, that, they're throwing things at you that they were doing much more slowly in the first game. But that said, after playing the game and upgrading my ship and stuff, I came back and played a little bit of it again from a fresh save, which unfortunately the only way to do that is that I found is to load up a different user on your PS4 or your PS5. Otherwise, it just auto-saves and has one save slot. So, but by acting as a different random user, I jumped in, played the first stage again with no upgrades, and actually found it was much easier, much more manageable to get through. And so, yeah, I think that if you run into that curve at the beginning, you're like, oh my gosh, this is too intense for me. Maybe just grind that first level a little bit and kind of get into the rhythm of things. And for a while, I wasn't even taking advantage of some of the abilities, like the boost ability to make your ship go super fast and be invincible very briefly, you know, or the firing backwards ability. Or the special weapon that you have that's on a cooldown. For a while, I was just moving my ship around and using the basic weapon, and it took me some time to kind of remember, oh yeah, I can do this special thing with this button, and I can do this with this button. So I think your mileage is going to vary if you're a better gamer than I am, which statistically speaking, you probably are. Something I found I really enjoy about the challenge level, about the upgrading experience built into this game, is that I can kind of create my own difficulty. In other words, I can grind as much as I want, but I can decide in the level, do I want to go for the temporary power-up, or do I want to try and get that credit over there, because that'll help me in the long term, and I'll maybe have to grind a little bit less if I can manage to get through this level and pick up more space credits. You know, in the moment, as enemies are blowing up and you're seeing them leave behind certain things, you can, in a split second, I mean, I'm taking so long to describe this, but these are decisions that are made in a split second. You have to decide, will I go up where the bullet hell is a little bit crazier up at the top of the screen, but I could maybe get that space credit, or do I want to dodge that and play it safe, you know? And I like that. It's not just about surviving through the level, it's also about thinking long term. I think that there is a nice upgrade in the graphics going from Habroxia 1 to Habroxia 2. The levels all looked aesthetically nearly identical. Not in terms of their layout, that certainly changed in the first game. And again, I'm only about halfway through the first game, and in this one I've only unlocked the first 4, I think, stages, but already I can see that aesthetically, even though maybe the background, maybe still in all of them, I can't remember, is like a spacey, basic, like black screen with stars and, you know, that kind of stuff going on. The landscape that you're passing by does have a little bit of variety that seems to link a bit thematically with the kind of place you're supposed to be flying through. And so seeing some of those upgrades is nice. There's a really nice enemy variety, I think more so in this game than in the first one, and so I appreciate that. There's some nice animations, like when you get this laser weapon, it's this massive, thick old beam of blasting light that just cuts through everything in front of it that is really impressive looking. It's got a nice sound effect that goes along with it. So in general, there's just a nice upgrade. It's still, to my eye, doesn't look as beautiful aesthetically or as interesting and artistic aesthetically as, say, the arcade classic Life Force. But I mean, that's a pretty high bar with Konami and all the artists that they had working on that game, I assume, at the time. But anyway, it still really captures the feel of, and to some degree, the aesthetics of some of those old arcadey shooters, and so it doesn't disappoint in that regard. One thing that I really dislike, I think I've gotten used to it just because I'm so in the moment with the gameplay, is the ship is always from a top-down view. So even when you're scrolling from left to right, it's not showing you the side of the ship, it's showing you a top-down view of the ship, which is odd to me. I think just from playing Life Force for so many years, you know, back in the day, I want a side view of the ship when it's side-scrolling, and I want a top-down view of the ship when it's going vertically. But instead, we get a top-down view of the ship that just feels weird when it is scrolling from left to right. The music is a nice upgrade from Habroxia 1 and from Twin Breaker. Those both of those games, also from Lilimo, have a musical style that reminds me of like NES games for sure, but something like the odd NES games, that had kind of weird sounding soundtracks that, like, I don't know what this is. It's not a catchy melody, and that certainly is its own aesthetic. And actually, it gave those two games a pretty unique musical identity. But I will say that I would prefer that the new tunes that are in Habroxia 2, which are more catchy, do feel more standard. In some ways, aesthetically, they're more, even though they're catchy and you can sing along with them, in some ways, aesthetically, they're more forgettable because they're more on style with what you would come to expect playing classic NES and, NES games specifically. Now, what about themes? Is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might stimulate some worthwhile thought or conversation? I don't think so. I think you'd really, based on what I've seen so far, I think you'd really have to stretch, you'd really have to search. Now, I know that Colin is coming from a naturalistic, or he might still describe himself as an atheist. I think he's an agnostic, technically speaking. But I think that doesn't really show up, really. There's like a crawl at the beginning that describes the setting of the game and talks about how humanity achieved peace on the earth, or pulled together and worked in unprecedented unity when there was this alien threat. And very often from a space fiction, science fiction that's written from a naturalistic or humanist type of perspective is going to have that utopian view that would believe that one day humanity will get our crap sorted out and we will learn to get along. But the problem is I just don't see a reason for that, given the human condition being so broken, and this world being so messed up. I mean, if anything, we just seem to be getting worse and becoming more effective at how we screw with each other. And so I think that kind of optimism, while it's certainly a trope of science fiction, like Star Trek certainly has popularized that mentality about the future and a proposed future in space for humanity. I don't think, apart from us being fixed from some kind of outside power, outside source, we're going to be in a position to do that. Now, I do think that it's very likely that when Jesus redeems those who trust him for salvation, that ultimately we will have resurrection bodies where our dysfunction, both physically and personally, is going to be surgically removed, and we will be at last humanity as humanity was ultimately meant to be. Then I think, gosh, the sky is the limit and far beyond when it comes to what could be possible with space exploration and all kinds of things. But I don't share that optimism about humanity and our ability to just pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps and just figure out magically somehow how to get along. But anyway, like I said, that's a small thing. I don't think this type of game lends itself to that. I doubt that Colin is trying to go for something thematically really there in a super intentional way, but I haven't played the rest of the game, so I'll be interested to play the rest of the game and to find out, and I definitely plan to do that. I'm enjoying my time with it. I do wish, I mean, once you've played Life Force and you see the artistic designs of those crazy enemies and the swirling flames and stuff like that, you ultimately, that's where the bar is, and you want to see that in other games that are in any way like it. But ultimately, for me, gameplay wins out, and that's what I'm enjoying most in this experience. Now, I don't know what the price is going to be. I think it's maybe $10 is what the price is going to be. For me personally, because I'm not a huge fan of this genre, I enjoy it, but not in long stretches. It's just a little snack here and there. And I'm also like a severe bargain hunter. What I would probably do is wait for this to go on sale for $7, $5, something like that. I think $10, if that's what it goes for, is a reasonable price. I think $20 is a price that's only going to be for real enthusiasts of this. $20 or $15. I mean, that's for people that are real enthusiasts of this type of game. And it does seem to be one that's well made. But for my money, the neighborhood of like less than $10 is what I would want to pay for a really nice snack like Habroxia 2. All right, those are all my thoughts. I would love to get yours in the comments below. And then, as always, I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.